Good day, good evening, good morning to everyone. This is Jonathan Fadugba from the Nordic Football Podcast. We're back, and I'm joined as ever by my good friend and colleague Steve Wyss. And it's pretty much close to the end of the season now, so this might be one of the last few episodes you hear of us in 2025 potentially. So strap yourselves in, tuck in, and hope you're ready. Hope you enjoyed our most recent episode with Anders Torstensen, the now departed manager of Mjällby, talking about the historic title win. If you haven't, go back on the last episode on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, and you can listen to that episode. The secrets of success to Mjällby, the record-breaking Swedish champions. But in the meantime, we've got pressing matters to deal with in Norway. And who else to talk about that than the main man himself, the Norwegian expert? He's got a bit of a gleam in his eye. I can tell he's up for it. Mr. Meat Man Soccer, Steve Wyss, how are you today, sir?
Well, good day, Jonathan. You always get me on a good night. It's always a good time to get me after the European games because they get my juices flowing. There's a chance, by the way, this could be our 200th episode. I'm not actually sure of the exact numbers, and it depends on what you class as an episode. But this could be number 200. It's really close. It might be 199. It might be 201. I'm not sure. But either way, I want to thank everyone who's been with us right from the start. There will be some people out there who have been. But yeah, I'm doing all right. It's getting to the end, really close to the end of the season now, obviously, in Norway. Sweden's done. But plenty to discuss as always. Sweden's not done, sorry. Norrköping are still in action with the Ågreet, aren't they, in the second leg? We'll talk about that.
Yeah, in terms of everyone who's been with us from the start, I don't know how many people would have listened to episode number 1 out of 200, Steve, but probably my mum. So give a shout out to her, and that might be about it. But I do remember back in the day, episode 1, Steve, I remember recording that. Very, very.
Do you remember the title of the episode?
I do.
Yeah.
Just about, I think.
It was a good title, the first episode. It would have hooked a few people in.
I've got a few in mind now that I'm trying to think of. I remember the famous episode where we titled it something that you said about Celtic, which got us a few pelters.
Ooh, that did, yeah.
That
More monikers than Clinton was the
that's
first
the one.
episode.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
quite a good one, really. That looking back.
Yeah, we talked about AFC Eskilstuna, I believe, in that episode, and their financial crisis.
What are they doing these days?
Exactly. So, listen, tonight's episode is not going to be the quickest one. The longest of episodes, because we're going to mainly recap Eliteserien. There's one game left of the 2025 season. There's also a cup final to talk about. So, without further ado, we'll crack on with those. But first, Steve, it's been a European night, as you say. They do get your juices going, as you've mentioned, and the only place to start, really, in terms of recapping the week from a European perspective, is the big game in the Champions League. Bodø Glimt faced off against Juventus, Steve. Now, I remember when we saw the draw for this Champions League group phase, and I remember saying to you when you were asking me how many points you think Glimt could get and where would they get points, and one of the games that I identified in my mind was this Juventus game. I had a feeling they might be able to get something, and although it didn't quite happen, Steve, I thought that the clash of styles might potentially be a problem for the Italian giants. Now, you were all over this game. You were on top of it. Take it away. Tell us what happened and when and why. Bodø Glimt Juventus, take us back to that big game.
It was a great game, and this is a match that Bodø Glimt should have got something out of, because I think there was a lot of factors in their favour here. The cold conditions, artificial pitch, a Juventus team who've not been in great form. This was an opportunity to get a win, let alone a draw. And the first half, Glimt, I think, were very impressive. They were definitely the better team. 13 shots they had. They were dominant, really. Juventus did have moments on the break, and Glimt will always give you some opportunities, but they got a 1-0 lead, Blomberg. And to be honest, it's not often that you would see Glimt lead 1-0 at half-time at home in the European game and not get anything out of it. So, but what actually happened was, Juventus are quite sneaky. Their squad is loaded, Juventus, by the way. They should be doing a lot better in Serie A. Their bench, this is on their bench today. You got Kefram Turan, Vlahovic, Yildiz, Zegrova, De Gregorio, the goalkeepers on the bench. You've got like the guys of Kostic, Cabral, Jonathan David. That's ridiculous. isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous. And the big substitution was at halftime. A man that I know you rate very highly. I'd never really not I've not rated him or anything, but the first time I thought, wow, about this player, Kenan Yildiz, the Turkish international, 20-year-old. He came on, he turned the game. Bodo Glimt went one-on-one with him, and that was a big mistake because he just beats everyone. They needed to double up on him, and they gave him far too much space. He dominated the second half, and he eventually got really. He didn't score, but he was the difference maker for me. Openda equalised soon after half time. And then McKennie, Weston McKennie, one of the worst Leeds players I've ever seen in the Premier League. Like, he just didn't care. But I tell you one thing I remember about McKennie. He had a great leap on him, and he had a great header from I think it was from a corner or free kick. So he got them ahead. And Juventus then really should have sealed the deal, but we got a penalty late for Bodo Glimt. 87th minute, Sondre Fett, he converted it. And, rather than settle for the draw and take the point, they went for the win. And it cost them because, again, it left Yildiz one-on-one, and eventually it led to a Jonathan David tap-in. So it was a glorious failure for Glimt, really. And I think they've started to show a bit of naivety in the Champions League. It's not the same as Europa League. They'd have won quite a lot of the Europa League games. But in the Champions League, you've sometimes got to play a little bit smarter, haven't you?
Yeah, and Kenan Yildiz, I've rated him for quite a while. He's only 20 years old, to be fair, so he's still a very young player. But so it's not a surprise maybe that some listeners haven't, or like you said yourself, you've not really necessarily come across him. But a very, very talented player, in my opinion. One to definitely watch out for. I note, Steve, according to FootMob, he had 5 out of 8 successful dribbles when he came on. So pretty impressive. Most complete dribbles of the match of any player. Steve, you mentioned there about Glimt, and maybe if they were in Europa League, things would be a bit easier for them. They're not doing the best in this Champions League group phase. It's looking a little bit bleak for them table wise. They're currently 32nd out of 36, Steve, with 2 points, and they're 4 points off Paphos, who are in the final qualification place. From your point of view, Steve, you've just mentioned it there. They played 5 games, 0 wins, 2 draws, 3 defeats. You said that they maybe are a bit naive in this Champions League group phase. Well, what exactly are they doing wrong? That they do right in other competitions, maybe, and that maybe you said they could do right in the Europa League. That is, making them come a cropper. Is it just quality? Is it change of tactics? Is it approach? What's this run been down to? Because, in many ways, getting to the group stage, the major group stage, was the achievement for Glimt, wasn't it? In some ways, they've tried for so many years, but now that they're here, obviously, we did think it would be difficult for them to qualify, but for some reason, maybe it's just not quite clicked. Or is it just a case of they've been playing some really, really tough opposition?
Yeah, I don't think the fixture list has been kind. What are they doing wrong? They haven't changed anything, which some would criticise that. But in the top level, sometimes you do have to change it a bit. They're happy to get involved in these basketball games end to end. And in the Europa League, they more often than not would win them. They would outscore the opposition. But in the case of the Champions League, I think they've got to be having some regrets that they're losing at home to Monaco and Juventus. 2 teams who are not doing very well domestically. But I have to say, Juventus looked right at home on this artificial surface. They seem to prefer it. I guess in Serie A, teams just sit back against Juventus, and these players don't have a chance to. They're like in dream world. Some of these players, like your Davids and Yildiz of this world. Glimt given way too much space. At the same time, I was on a split screen. I was watching Slavia Prague against Athletic Bilbao, and it was a completely different approach from Slavia Prague. They're hunkering in for a 0-0. They're trying to graft out, get the draw, whereas Glimt are just only thinking of one way, and that is to win, which is admirable, isn't it? But at 2-2, when you've been outplayed, they've been outplayed significantly second half, I thought. 3 minutes to go. Take your point. I know they're not going to qualify, but get a draw out of it. Still get good prize money, nearly €1 million, I think. Take your draw and get out of there. And I just think they were left themselves too open. But there'll be plenty who would hit back at me and said, they want to get the first Champions League win. They only play one way. And I just think sometimes, again, when they were 1-0 up as well at half time, some other teams would be a little bit more defensive in the second half, maybe. That's where I think they're a little bit naive. And that's the extra quality, though, isn't it? In the Champions League, it will punish you. That Juventus squad is stacked and loaded, to be fair. That Juventus team, that should be in the top 2-3 in Serie A, really. And maybe Stability will get them there. That was encouraging for Juventus.
Yeah, and I saw even Dusan Vlahovic, I don't think he mentioned, he didn't get off the bench. So, that's a lot of talent in their squad, as you've mentioned there. Steve, they've got 3 games left. Glimt, Dortmund away, Manchester City at home, Atletico Madrid away. You did say the fixture list hasn't been kind to them. I was talking to you about this a couple of weeks ago, I think, about Spurs, and I know they've just played PSG, but some of their games have been fairly straightforward. But that is a really hard run, isn't it? When you look at those
Yeah.
3 games, is there even a chance of them getting any points in their last 3?
Well, I don't. You reckon they've got a chance at Dortmund, don't you? But I don't see it. I just think Dortmund is too strong offensively. Man City at home. Look, if City put their reserves out, who knows? And
I think
Atletico
they could
Madrid
get something.
away.
I think they could get something at City actually.
Maybe look. Let's just say the last game, Atletico Madrid are landlocked and they can't finish anywhere like apart from 9th to 15th. Maybe they might put a reserve team out, but I don't honestly see them getting any more points now. But I think we're going to see a lot of performances just like the Juventus one, like glorious failures, if you know what I mean. A glorious failure.
Glorious failure indeed. And there's only 4 more games in this season, actually, Steve. But that's another thing to consider is the fact that they're going to be playing 2 of these games when they're in the middle of maybe their summer/winter break. They might have to fit in a few preseason friendlies to get some sharpness. Because the game against Manchester City is on the 20th of January at home, 2026, and the game against Atletico Madrid away is a week later on the 28th of January, the Wednesday. So, yeah, no fixtures really between now and then, except Champions League and one other league game, which we'll talk about in the second part of this podcast, the league. So watch this space for that one. Massive, massive game coming out this weekend. But let's move on, Steve. That's the Champions League out of the way. We then move on to European other fixtures on the Thursday, and that's the Europa League night. So talk to me about the teams in the Europa League and Conference League. Let's start with who should we start with? Maybe let's start in Greece. PAOK Bran. A 1-1 draw, Steve. Bran have been in, we said it on the last show when we talked Europe. Bran have been doing all right. And they've gone to PAOK and got a decent point, you might say. Would you agree with that perspective? Or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I betted against Bran again away from home, just like I did against Bologna. And once again, Bran have surprised me. They really have. I've got to give them a lot of credit because at the weekend they got battered by Molde 4-0. And I'll be honest, I was thinking the long season was catching up with them. But I think that it's quite clear they are putting their heart and soul into this Europa League campaign. It means a lot more to them. You could tell on the field. It meant more to their players than it did PAOK. I think PAOK were a little bit surprised by it, actually. Top of the Greek league, by the way, PAOK right now. So they're in good. They're a good team at the moment. Bran missed an early penalty, 20th minute it was. Kornvig, good save, I thought. Actually, good save. But it was one of those where I was almost writing my sort of script for this podcast. Again, a bit like Glimt, showing their naivety in Europe in a way that you've got to take your chances, haven't you, when you're on top away from home again in Europe. And they didn't do that enough. They had some great moments. They started well, and they started the second half really well too. But found themselves 1-0 down. Ivan Nusic with the goal for PAOK. It was a good finish. Cut inside and he curled it into the corner. And to be honest, after that, PAOK actually disappointed me. They didn't really offer much to go 2-0 up. And Bran piled the pressure on the last 10 minutes and eventually got a goal effectively from a corner. Kornvig made up for his penalty miss and poked it home. They deserved it. I thought they absolutely deserved the draw. Bran put a lot into the game. I think tactically set up really well and showed great fight. So 8 points now for them in the table. I think they've got a real shot of making it through to the playoff round. They've picked up them last 2 draws they've got were very unexpected, but most welcome.
Yeah, they're certainly putting all their effort into it, that's for sure. Nobody can accuse them of kind of taking it lightly or, not being able to compete with some of these big teams in Europa League action. Steve, 3 games left for them as well, similar to Glimt. It will be played, obviously, some of them will be played in their winter break, the close season. But Fenerbahce at home, Midtjylland at home, Sturm Graz away. Can you see them qualifying? Or at least getting a playoff?
Definitely. I mean, the next match against Fenerbahce is probably the toughest game. But they're at home. And who wants... I don't think the Fenerbahce players are going to look forward to going to Bergen on a cold night on the 11th of December, are they? And then Midtjylland at home, that's a good draw because they're not going to be sharp because they're on the winter break as well in Denmark. They're a good team, Midtjylland, but that's not a bad time to get them. And Stern Graz away. That's again another league I think that has a winter break, so they could get points out of all of those contests potentially. They're going to have to fight really hard again. But I think after them last two draws, the belief will be there in the players, and they're going to fight like beavers, in the words of Chris Kamara, to get through, I think, which would be a great achievement. I really tip my hat to Bran. I'm really, really pleased for them that they've done well in this Europa League. Remember, they were the lowest ranked side on coefficient in the whole competition that made it into the final groups. So they have already, whatever happens, overachieved. Well done to them. Hopefully, they can continue it.
I find it strange that they were the last ranked team in this competition because of the coefficient. I know it's statistical, but is that not? I mean, would that not have changed now with the sort of achievements of Glimt and the European coefficients and things like that? Maybe for next season.
The club coefficient. This is individual
Oh,
club coefficient.
even-
Look, it's simply because they've not been in Europe much. Elfsborg were the lowest ranked side in last year's Europa League group stage. They didn't qualify, but they gave a bloody good show, didn't they? I think,
yeah,
look, coefficient sometimes is bollocks. Let's be honest. Next year, the Swedish teams, Mjällby, Hammarby, and who else was in the top three? Gais. Apparently, it's going to be the lowest ranked individual club coefficient Sweden's ever taken into European competitions, unless like Malmo win the cup. It doesn't mean the teams are going to do badly, though, does it?
no,
It doesn't mean that.
not at all. And Brown have proven that, I guess, in this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. So great result for them. They've got to be confident going to the last three games. If they can get draws at Bologna and PAOK, I think it just shows you that they're probably suited to this underdog tag in the Europa League.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic effort, to be fair. Like you said, PAOK and even some of the other results, Bologna away, Steve, they've had some fantastic results, smashing Rangers 3-0, Utrecht. So the only game really that they've sort of struggled maybe was Lille away, but even that is not an easy fixture in my opinion, going to Ligue 1 team. So fair play to Brand. Congratulations, like you said there, on their achievements. A creditable 1-1 draw. And let's move on, Steve, to another team. This was a bit of a throwback if we're looking at Sweden, a team that's not exactly having a much of a fun time at the moment in life. Down at the bottom of the Europa League group stage, third bottom actually. Nice, 5 games, 5 defeats. What is going on at OGC Nice, Steve? Is it the Ineos effect? Is that something to do with the owners? Who knows? But 2 places above them and still doing equally quite poorly, some might argue, is Malmo, FF, Steve. Historic sort of game tonight. It was a bit of a throwback, wasn't it? Nottingham
Yes.
Forest away. I saw the banners pre-match. I saw some of this game, and it was a massive throwback to obviously the European Cup final that was played 46 years ago, roughly, against Nottingham Forest under the old Brian Clough era. And they had a very nice banner there, the Forest fans, with Trevor Francis' winning goal. Just a wonderful sort of night, Steve, wasn't it? And Malmo aren't having a great time with things, but I even got the sense their fans would have enjoyed travelling to the city going for this one, and they looked like they were up for it.
Yeah, repeat of the 1979 European Cup final. Trevor Francis apparently scored the winner in it. I certainly don't remember that. You might, Jonathan. You're getting on a bit now, aren't you? But no, look, listen, I'll tell you what.
The cheek of it.
The match pretty much went as we all thought. Ended 3-0 Forest. The stats are just abnormal. Abnormally loaded towards Forest. 22 shots to 1. 7 corners to 0. It was complete dominance from Nottingham Forest, and this is really their second string side as well. The likes of Anderson was on the bench, Gibbs White was injured, Nico Williams on the bench, a couple of others as well. They've got decent depth. I think Forest looked quite a good unit under Sean Dyche. I've got to be honest. I really like what I'm seeing from them at the minute. This was always going to be a tough game for Malmo, and it was always going to be about damage limitation. They were 2-0 down at half time, and Milenkovic made 3-0 in the second half. And it could have been more. Maybe it should have been more. For me, only one player can come out of the match with proper credit for Malmo, and that was the goalkeeper again. Mentioned him before, Elborg. Looks very good in these Europa League games. Melker Elborg, 22-year-old keeper, made some very, very good saves. 7 saves, actually, officially. I think he
No,
made in the match.
I thought he was fantastic. He was really, really good.
Mm.
And questions could be asked maybe about Robin Olsen's place in the team on the back of this evidence. He made some fantastic saves, I thought. Even I think it was the second goal for Callum Window. He made a great save, and then obviously rebound was poked in. But I agree with you on that one, Steve. I know you like a keeper, but definitely on this occasion, I do agree with you about him. He looked very talented, Melker Elborg. Steve, and maybe could be looking at as potentially Malmo's first choice keeper next season. Steve. So I think he's one to watch.
They're a mess, really, aren't they, Malmo? I mean, the manager on the sidelines is Mravrac, Arnes Mravrac. He's going to go to Middlesbrough, isn't he? As an assistant, I do believe, after the Malmo's final group game of the year, which is in Porto. They're going to get absolutely murdered there as well, by the way. Look, it's a tough time for Malmo. They never seem to be able to show their best strength in Europe, do they? Enough. Last year was exactly the same. We know there's going to need to be a big upheaval at the club over the winter. It's as simple as that. They're a complete sitting duck in this Europa League group now. And, in 2 weeks' time, I would fully expect Porto reserves to comfortably beat them. But the good thing is they can get a bit of sun out there. So it's at least a sunny country, isn't it? Is Portugal more often than not.
Yeah, totally agree, Steve. And the other good thing, I suppose, is that the season's nearly over and they can stick a pin in this one and go home for their holidays, because since about end of September, it's been a total nightmare, really. If that even, you could even go further, you could even trace it further back, really. They've had a bit of a horrendous season, Malmo, haven't they? Domestic and European fronts. Just not worked out for them, and this game was a reflection of that. No, I don't think anybody expected them to really get anything from this game, and as you said, even management team is sort of looking elsewhere now. And yeah, but the sooner the season's over, I think for Malmo fans, the better from their point of view. So let's move on. A couple other games, Steve. But we have to turn to Conference League now, don't we?
Yes,
so
we do.
Let's do that. And just on Forest, by the way, they are still the 16th in the table. So, from an English point of view, potentially they could look to qualify as well. So they seem to have turned things around, like you said. But in the Conference League, Steve, which I always find a fascinating competition, some of the teams in it, we had Zrinski Mostar against Beko Haken. Zrinski Mostar are a team from
Bosnia.
Yep, I knew that. Top of the league in Bosnia, in fact, at the moment. So having quite a good season ahead of the likes of FK Sarajevo and others. Steve played 14, only lost one game in the league in that season. And they proved to be tough opposition, although Hacken were ahead for a lot of this game. Until the 78th minute, they led 1-0. A goal from Silas Anderson, who's had he's looked like a bit of a decent player, to be fair, at Beko Hacken. They've had a lot of squad turnover, but he's one who's looked okay. And then they held out until the 78th minute and goals from Mario Kuza. And then Nemanja Bilbia in the 82nd minute turned it around in 5 minutes. And Hacken were done and dusted now. Not the best of results for Beko Hacken in terms of the group as well, because they're a bit like sort of Brand in some ways, in the fact that I think they've given themselves creditable performances at certain points in this group. But it leaves them again high and dry with no points, and they only have 2 points, Steve, in 4 games. So they're really struggling. They're 3 points off maybe a final playoff place, and they don't have many games left to turn it around, to be honest. 2 left. They'll play Larnaca at home and Slovan Bratislava away. Steve, they played sort of teams like Strasbourg as well. It was a similar situation, losing 2-1, giving a fairly good account of themselves. Although they were 2-0 down and came back. They gave a good account of themselves against Rayo Vallecano, in my opinion, Steve, getting a 2-2 draw with a 94. It was actually a 103rd minute penalty by Vallecano to equalise. They were ahead in the game long into the 90th minute, and a 0-0 draw at Shelbourne. So, Steve, from my point of view, they've actually been okay at times, but just they're not being able to finish the job. What was your perspective on this? I don't know if you caught the game.
Yeah, I watched it. I opposed Häcken, actually. I betted on Drinsky. I like to oppose teams that have not had a competitive game for a while. But I actually got the match wrong. Häcken were by far the better team throughout. They should have won, let alone lost. And I think that they're going to have some regrets in this group stage if they don't qualify now. They could have won all their 4 games, genuinely. Even the Strasbourg match. And this is one they definitely should have won. This seemed by far the better team. Missed their chances. And then somehow got hit by 2 goals in 4 minutes. Came out of nowhere. What can you do? I suppose the lesson is take your chances, right? But they look good. I think the frustration from a Allsvenskan perspective, I think if any of the teams that finished in, say, the top 5 or 6, Allsvenskan, were in the same fixtures that Häcken had in the group stage, I think they'd definitely be qualifying. And imagine someone like Hammarby or Gais with these fixtures. They would be definitely qualifying, in my opinion. Häcken have played well in these games, but they do lack a bit of. Well, they're just kind of an average team, aren't they, this season? That's the problem, and we've maybe seen that here in the group stage. They'll be frustrated. They've still got 2 games left, but they keep making too many mistakes, to put it mildly. And I suppose it maybe sums up their whole season.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there. It does sum up the whole season. Just quite a nice fluff, but not able to get the job done. No meat on those bones, Steve. And it's unfortunate because, like you say, they have been, and they've actually surprised me how well they've done in this. Even though the results haven't gone their way, there's certain games in this group stage I thought they'd probably just get quite comfortably beaten, and they haven't. So in some ways, it's even more frustrating because it just shows you that they've actually, I think they've actually done quite a good job, but it still doesn't look like they're going to qualify. They're basically going to need to win both games really, and then hope that results can go their way. If we're being honest, Larnaca at home they could probably maybe get a result against. I know some Cypriot teams are doing okay. Bratislava away, I think that's a fairly tough game. But let's look elsewhere, Steve. The other final team. Is there a final team?
That is it, actually. By the way, NK Larnaca are unbeaten, and I don't think they conceded a goal yet in the group stage, but that is a winnable match.
Yeah,
AK
you're right.
Larnaca themselves are only
They have
2-0
drawn.
nil
They have
draws.
drawn 2. So when you say unbeaten, it's not like they're still
It's a
second.
winnable game, though. I could see Häcken winning that, actually, and getting back in contention. So, yeah, I think for them, they'll be very frustrated. Because look what Djurgården did in this competition last season. It could be... It's the sort of competition some small teams can do very well in. And there'll be someone that makes, say, the quarterfinals of this, and we'll be like, who the hell are they? We will, won't we? We'll be like, who are they?
Well, maybe even further than that potentially. But I think that they're not out of it yet. But it is a must-win game against Larnaca. If they can get a win there, then they could go into the final group stage and maybe for the final group game. Maybe Bratislava have been terrible. They're only 1 point ahead of Häcken, in fact. So maybe not terrible, but they've won 1 and lost 3. So they've actually lost more games than Häcken. But that will be that.
Yeah.
I thought there was a Norwegian team, but in the Conference League. But maybe I'm getting my wires crossed there.
There's too many teams.
There's so many
There's a
European
Finnish
teams.
team, Cups.
Yeah. There's so
Cups are
many
in there.
European games these days, Steve, that it's hard to keep up with everything. However, that'll do for part 1. Join us in part 2. We're going to recap. Well, not recap. We're going to look ahead to a juicy end to the season in Eliteserien. Steve, you're going to tell us who's top of the league in fantasy, who could win the title, the Nordic Football Podcast League. Come tune in, find out. We're also going to announce the winner of the Allsvenskan Fantasy League. So join us after this short break where we will talk about the final day of Eliteserien 2025 and who will win the title.
Welcome back to the Nordic Football Podcast. You with Steve Wyss and Jonathan Fadugba, and the final round of Eliteserien is upon us very, very soon. It's this weekend. There is a title decider. Most of the other positions are already determined. Jonathan mentioned it there before we went to the break. Fantasy is very much alive. There's 1 round left, and in the NFP League, a 15-point lead for Ronnie Ruff, with a team called East Action Stars. Menno Koch on fire is chasing him. someone called Jens, 15 points adrift. And then Northern Lights is the team owned by Gwen Averley, is a further 22 points adrift. So it's also played for. There's actually 6 players within 25 points of the lead. So, and that includes OCD All-Stars, who's always up there, isn't he, every year in Allsvenskan. Jürgen Holmholm as well with Sorv FC, a long-time supporter of the podcast. Jürgen, great to see you up there in the standings on Eliteserien Fantasy. I've had a solid enough season. I'm 30th in the NFP League. Not bad. I've had a couple of really bad years in Norway, Jonathan. So I'm happy with my performance in fantasy this season.
30th out of how many?
I don't know how many are in the league, actually. I know I'm 26th ranked in England, and I'm 1,100 overall. It's nothing special, but, look at some of my previous years. I mean, I was, where was I last season? I was as low as 7,600 overall last year, which was a disgrace, really. The equivalent of a sackable offence. This will be my best performance since 2020 on Norwegian Fantasy. So I'm pretty happy, actually, with that. But I'm nowhere near these big boys at the top. They have absolutely smashed it to pieces. And fair play to them. Over 200 in the 207 are in our NFP league.
I don't know where I am, but it must be near the 200 mark. So we will move swiftly on, Steve, to the most important matters, really. And that is the 30th of November, Steve, Sunday. The end of the Eliteserien 2025 season. Now, we did have an episode 2 weeks ago titled Viking, you have to get the job done or something like that. You have to make it count. And we were imploring them because, Steve, you were commenting about the fact that you have to take your chance in these situations. And to be fair, they've listened to you so far because they have, to this point, taken their chance pretty well, I would say, Steve. And I don't know if you'd agree with me on that, but they are in line to win the league. Now, you're going to tell us the context in terms of recent results because they've held firm, and I've seen you commenting a few times about their, shall we say, testicular fortitude, Steve, in terms of how they have managed to navigate these last few games where I thought it could be a little bit tricky for them. And we now will enter the final game of the season, Steve. 29 played for all clubs, with the podium looking as follows. Third place, Tromsø, 54 points. Second place, Bodø/Glimt, 67 points, Steve. And top of the league, Viking, with one game left on 68 points. 1 point ahead of Glimt with an inferior goal difference of 15, plus 37 against Glimt, plus 52. Both teams have won 21 games, Steve. The only real difference maker in this situation is Glimt have lost one extra match. 5 draws for Viking, 4 draws for Glimt, but 4 defeats for Glimt and 3 defeats for Viking, Steve. And it will all come down to the final game.
It will.
That is a game. I'm just going to run through the fixture, Steve, before we get your perspective. Bodø/Glimt at home to Fredrikstad is their final match. And Viking at home to Vålerenga. Steve, Vålerenga recently beat Kristiansand 3-0. But Viking are in cracking form at this moment in time. Just talk to us first before we sort of get your prediction and you say who you think is going to win the title, Steve. I mean, Viking, we have to give their hats. We have to take hats off, right? Because they won 6 in a row. And at a point of time where we said that this is where they have to take their chance, they had 4 games left. And they've navigated them pretty well, haven't they?
They have. And to be honest, everything that I predicted has transpired so far. I have been in the Viking court since mid-season, really, even before that. And I did say, I can't remember what episode, I think it was maybe six games to go. I said, if they win the remaining games, they will be champion. I did correctly call that Bodø/Glimt would drop points somewhere. And you know what? Glimt nearly dropped points again.
You did.
They were very, very close to dropping points against K from Oslo. Bodø/Glimt scored with 2 minutes to go of stoppage time against K from Oslo to keep them in the hunt, really, so to speak. And then Viking did a professional job to Fredrikstad, 1-0 win. The sort of result that champions grind out at the end of the season, really. They just did enough, scored in the second half. That was never going to be an easy game. Fredrikstad gave a good account of themselves. They didn't give in or anything. And I think that was really the toughest hurdle out of the way. That was the one game I could have seen them dropping some points in. But now I think it's over. I just can't envision Viking not beating Vålerenga final round. I just can't. In fact, I think there's more chance that Bodø Glimt will drop points against Fredrikstad, to be honest. A tired Glimt after their midweek endeavours.
Well, this is what I was going to say, Steve. Just sorry to interrupt you there, but you've said you've predicted it, but it's not actually happened yet. So, is it going to happen?
So far, everything. Yes, Viking will win the title.
It could still twist.
No, this is done. We're recording on Thanksgiving Day, or just about. But you can stick a fork in this title for me. The turkey's done. Viking will win the title. I just can't. They have been absolutely like an animal possessed in the last few weeks to get over the line here. They are not going to miss this opportunity. Vålerenga, a mid-table, nothing to play for whatsoever. I know that was the same when they actually beat Glimt, but I felt like they had a point to prove at home against the defending champions. Viking get the job done here. And like I said, if we start to get word through that Viking are well clear, then Bodø Glimt might not even beat Fredrikstad, to be honest, Jonathan. That's the way I personally see it.
Very interesting predictions there, Steve. Now, Viking haven't won the title, as we mentioned on a recent episode, since 1991. And I'm not even sure if you were born then. I know you're a bit of a young pup, or maybe you were. Who knows? But that is more than 30 years. This is a massive. You're saying basically it's done. Stavanger, in the streets of Stavanger, Steve, they're going to be going crazy, right? What would this mean if Viking do get the job done? Because although I'm going to be a bit of a sort of a party pooper here, a bit of a negative Nancy, and remind Viking that it's not actually done yet. From your point of view, you think it's definitely going to happen. Glimt could still pip them to the post. Even a draw, Steve, could throw it away. So it's not necessarily done. But from your point of view, what would it mean to the city, to the fans? Just talk about the evolution of Viking over the years, and how much this would mean to the town and the club if they were to sort of pull this off, because that is a long wait for quite a big club in Norway.
Well, they better win it now, otherwise half of Stavanger is going to come after me, aren't they?
I think they'd have to rename you Jinx Man Soccer if they don't win it now.
You are right. I said this a few weeks ago. There is an unfortunate position where they could end up on 69 points, and it would be the wrong sort of 69. But let's get them over the line. What would it mean to the club? A lot. Obviously, first title in decades. It's just a massive club, one of the biggest in Norway. Some people might be listening for this podcast for the first time. They are a huge club. They're massively supported. And they've been knocking on the door in recent years. They've won Norwegian Cups. They want to get this league in the bag. And this is a huge opportunity for them. In most seasons, 67 points that Glimt are on now, that's enough to win a title. So one of these teams obviously going to be very disappointed. But I think for Viking, obviously, because they haven't won that title in decades, it would be a bitter blow now if they didn't get over the line. But it would mean the absolute earth. You're talking about open-top bus parades, everything. This is huge for the fans. And I think it'd be good for the league, really, as well. Some brand fans might be listening and thinking, yeah, we don't want them to win it. But I think, in general, a lot of neutrals probably would want Viking to get over the line now. It'd be good to see a new champion.
And let's touch on one of your comments there, Steve, as well, that you said they are sort of hell for leather, was kind of, to paraphrase you. You said they've got the bit between their teeth. They're relentless at the moment. Why exactly? What exactly has prompted that? Because sometimes teams get nervous, especially if you've not won it for this long. You were basically stuck your neck on the line saying they're definitely going to win it. So, what gives you that confidence in terms of how they're playing? Talk to me about their playing style, what they've done right in this last 6 or 7 weeks. Because, like you said, they're in incredible form, and you said that they've kind of got that bit between the teeth. They look like hungry animals. I think you basically said, quote unquote. What's prompted this? Why they suddenly? What's switched in their minds that has made them turn into this sort of winning machine in the last weeks? And can they keep that going for one final game?
Yeah, I think they've shown really good defensive resilience when they needed to. I mean, they've not conceded many goals recently since the 3-3 draw, where they bottled it against Sarpsborg. They've only conceded, 3 goals, 3 clean sheets in that. The 1-0 win against Fredrikstad, they're not a 1-0 team. I think it's only the third 1-0 win of the season. But it's their offense normally that just gets them there. They're irresistible. They create enough chances that eventually it'll be enough goals to deliver the goods, really. I think you'd say that 3-3 draw where they drop points could have been the breaking of them. But instead, it's been the making of them. It's like they picked themselves off the canvas and delivered in many different ways. And I think sometimes you've got to lose it to win it. And in the last couple of seasons, they've had a chance to. I mean, eventually they fell well short, actually. But they've been up there challenging for the title. And I think I'd like to think that they probably maybe learned from those experiences of being in the hunt for the gold medal. And maybe this time not letting it slip. So, like I said before, sometimes you've got to lose it to win it, if you know what I mean. It's like a tennis player, isn't it? You're not always going to win your first Grand Slam final, are you? You're not always going to win your second one. I think Novak Djokovic might have been like that back in the day. But, you gradually learn, don't you? And eventually get over the line if you're good enough. And they are more than good enough. So it would be the culmination of several years' hard work, right back from when they got promoted again, really, including that time with the Norwegian Cup win, several top 4 finishes in the title race, and they recognise their chance. And I think they'll take it. I hope they take it now. I'll be honest, I'll be very disappointed for them now and all their fans. We know there's a lot of Viking fans who listen to this pod who have interacted with us through the years. So I would be genuinely devastated for them. Buda Glimt, I've always liked Glimt, what they've done, but they've had plenty of success. Let's share it around a little bit, eh?
Yeah, and do you know what? When you said that, there was a team that came to my mind actually when you were just describing Viking there, and that's when you were saying about teams that they get the first knockout, they don't win it the first time, and then eventually they're good years of hard work and they come back and win things. And that team in my mind was Arsenal, to be honest. I think it's a similar maybe trajectory in that sense, getting knocked out of Grand Slams. And I'm gonna, I know it's not an English football podcast, but there's similarities there in terms of, like you said, biding their time and then coming together. And it feels like it's all coming together for Arsenal, and maybe it's all coming together for Viking. So let's see how they go. But Glimt won't give it up necessarily. Steve, what do you think they'll do on the last day of the season? Will they rest players? Maybe they've got big Champions League games coming up.
Do you know what?
Also, before you answer that, a very important question for you, Steve. Could this be Kjetil Knutsen's final game as an Eliteserien manager?
Well, it could be. I've said before, if he is going to leave the club, this would be probably the most opportune time, wouldn't it? After the final round, whatever happens. And, in the Champions League group where they're not really going to get out of that now. So I think in the past he's been reluctant to leave because they've often had a European campaign knockover the following year. And so, yeah, listen, I don't know what his plans are. But if he is going to leave the club, this would be the time, I think. So, yeah, it might be the last one that is at the Eliteserien level. Fredrikstad are no easy meet. We've seen that. And Glimt have actually, since Fredrikstad came back to the league, Glimt have not had it easy against them. So, like I said, if we get to half-time and say it's 0-0 and they hear Viking are 3-0 up, I could see this petering out into a draw. I really could. Save your energy for the Champions League, right? But ultimately, if Glimt need to win it, they'll win it. You know what I mean? If they hear that Vålerenga are suddenly in business, then I expect Glimt to totally... imagine a world where both lose. You just imagine that. I couldn't imagine it, really. But it would be ridiculous. The price, Fredrikstad, like 20-1 to win this game.
Well, I don't think Viking will care if they both lose, but
15-1. That's actually a big price. If Fredrikstad won the game, it wouldn't be. I don't think that would be the biggest shock ever. But I've seen it before, where you look at the results and you get disheartened, and teams just kind of give up a little bit. Even Glimt might get to that level, but
from your point of view, Steve. Just moving on, obviously, to other matters in the table, because there's still other things to talk about. You've said there that you think, you've pretty much recapped today. You think Viking will be worthy champions.
Yes.
Just on Glimt in a word then, before we wrap up and move on. Will this be Kjetil Knutson's final game? 2 questions, 2 one-word answers. Will this be Kjetil Knutson's final Eliteserien match as a Glimt manager?
Yes.
Will Buda Glimt win the title?
No.
Will they win this game?
No.
I like it. Further down the table, Steve, and this is a fan base you tend to sort of rub up the wrong way at times. I know what you're like. You made a few little pot shots here and there.
Which team? There's too many now.
Usually about XG or metrics evening out, you might start to guess. And you've had a few fans this season, Steve, giving you a bit of a slap on the chops, actually. I've had a few emails, people commenting. Tromso, Steve. It's an interesting battle further down the race because we've still got the European battle to talk about and Brann in fourth. And there's only 1 point separating these two teams as well. Unfortunately, Tromso cannot catch their rivals Glimt in second, although they will finish just below them, potentially just below them. But they could also drop to fourth because they're only 1 point ahead of Brann, who are in fourth. So, again, Steve, final games of this season and some big games, as I just mentioned. So Brann will face HamKam. Obviously, they've had the European trip to Greece to navigate, so maybe a bit of a disadvantage, Steve, whereas Tromso will go to Christiansen, BK, my boys, who, by the way, Steve, they are safe and will be in Eliteserien in 2026 to mess you up once again. Come on, my boys. They've done it. 5 points clear of the relegation battle. We'll see you next year, KBK. We'll see you next year. But they can settle the European place here, the podium. So, what's your thoughts on these two games, Steve? These teams as well in general. How would you recap their seasons? What are what's your kind of close to end of season report on them?
Well, let's just first of all look at what the criteria is for qualifying for Europe. If you win the league, you go into the Champions League playoff round, which means you're basically 2 legs away from making the group stage. If you finish second, then you enter the Champions League second qualifying round against the other losers around the Europe who are not champions. Third place now gets you into the Europa League second round qualifying round, that's very useful because if you get knocked out of the Europa round, you go down the conference round, you've got a better chance of ultimately getting a group stage. Fourth place gets the Conference League second qualifying round. That's a long route. That's a tough route in, I always find. Not impossible. Djurgården did it, but it's tough. And I think the winner of the Norwegian Cup is going to be getting Europe as well. I'm not sure how they're going to work it out because there's 2 cups in operation. But anyway, look, third place is well worth its weight in gold. Tromsø should get it now. They're not the third best team in the league. Brann are the third best team, but they've profited from Brann's demise domestically of late. Brann have struggled to juggle domestic and European games, as I predicted. This happens, and Tromsø, in their credit, have managed to take advantage of that and get themselves in third place. They've had a solid season. Look, over the course of 30 games, they're probably worthy of third place, actually. In fairness, they would be worthy of that third spot. They've been very strong. And it's I said before, this is a club with a bit between its teeth, desperate to usurp Buda Glimt. I don't think they'll rest until they've won something. So let's see how they get on. And, for Tromsø fans, they're not going to finish up a Buda Glimt, but this is probably the best that it gets. If they can win their final game, which they should win. They've got an easy game, I think. Like you said there, Christiansen away is an easy game at this stage, where with Christiansen nothing to play for. I'm not even sure Brann are going to beat HamKam. I mean, Brann have given it all tonight on a Thursday night. Maybe they've got one last hurrah. HamKam are no great shakes either, but I'm not even sure that Brann will win. But I certainly think Tromsø will get the job done at Christiansen, finish third, and that will give Tromsø a genuinely great chance of making the Conference League group stages next season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we do have to give a shout out to Tromsø, actually, Steve, because you've just mentioned there they maybe they want to catch Glimt. They're a determined side. They finished 13th last season, Steve. They literally finished joint with the team that ended up in the relegation playoff, Haugesund. Just on goal difference, they just about survived by the skin of their teeth, Steve. Obviously, they're going to finish in the same position my boys KBK are going to finish this season. So it's a massive jump, Steve. There's 10. They've climbed 10 places in the table. Can you just give a few words for Tromsø and how well they've done?
Yeah, they've done very well, tactically well set up, had some good transfers this season. They're a team that you've got to look beyond the numbers. The underlying metrics are not always, they're not a good way to judge this team because they often kind of overachieve them. But one thing I will say, fourth best expected goals against overall now. And I think that finally, it's taken a few years, but I think finally that is a correct assessment of what their major strength is. And that is defensively. If you need a team to keep a clean sheet for you in Eliteserien, I'm probably going to call on Tromsø actually, even more than Bodø Glimt. I'm going to call on them because they're a team that I think can keep it very tight, who can keep clean sheets, and those expected goals against numbers are indication of where they've, that's the core of their success really. And they've become a really good versatile team, strong at home and away. Fourth best home record, third best away. That's really impressive. Tromsø back in the day when I was getting into this league were useless away from home. Terrible on the road. They were awful. They've become a really strong away team, and they deserve what they get at the end of it. Over the 30-game season, if they do finish third, they'll deserve it. Yeah, for me, Brann are a better team, but it's not always the better team finishing above them in the table, is it? That's the way football works.
Yeah, and it will be a tough ask for Brann, like you've mentioned there. After the European exploits, tough game. So in another word, Steve, who gets that final third place spot?
Tromsø for me. I think Tromsø win. Brann probably will win as well, but it might be one of those where if they see the Tromsø scoreline convincing, they might just down tools in the second half.
And this is just an interesting question for listeners, Steve. We've talked about this before. We have actually had a few listener emails over the course of the past year asking this question, Steve. Where can they watch Eliteserien matches if someone wanted to tune in the UK, of course? Is there anywhere someone could watch these games to recap off the season, crunch matches?
One Football is the app or the website. They show all the games Eliteserien this season. It is about a minute delay, so if you want real time, then you have to do a bookmaker stream. But not a lot of them have the full screen option. In fact, none of them have the full screen option on the bookies. So One Football app is the one I would go for from the UK. I don't know about the rest of the world, but that is the one that I would use. It's a good one. On the web, you can go full screen as well, but you are a minute and a half behind.
Fantastic stuff. We don't like to promote unless we have to. So that is where the place to be. Steve, the table I find quite fascinating this year because maybe we'll talk about it in the end of season recap, but you've got likes of Mulder and Rosenborg slap bang in mid-table, which I find incredible, really. And HamKam could still finish above both of them if the results go their way this weekend. But in terms of relegation, Steve, it's actually done and dusted. We know exactly who is staying up and who is going down and who's going to be in the relegation playoff. As I mentioned, in 13th place, my boys Christiansen have survived. K from Oslo, Steve, have survived. HamKam have survived. But Bryn will be in the relegation playoff in 14th place, 28 points. Christiansen's with 33. Godset down, 20 points, Steve, in 29 games. 8 points behind Bryn with 1 game left, which is incredible, really. Godset after such a decent season last year. And Haugesund. We even had an episode titled after them. That's how bad they've been this year. 9 points from 29 games. They are down. Steve, do you just want to give a bit of a mention to those 3 teams? Brynne, Godset, and Haugesund.
Well, Brynne have actually overachieved. I had them down to finish bottom, didn't I? So it's kind of weird to say, but we actually got to give praise to a team that's finished 14th. And they will go into the relegation playoff match against either Kongsvinger or Ålesund, who meet off to decide the winner of that this weekend. Shout out begrudgingly to Start, by the way, who have been promoted from Obos League. Not a club I'm a big fan of. Would have much preferred to see Kongsvinger go up there, a new team. But Kongsvinger can still make it into Eliteserien. So, look, good luck, whoever is in the playoff. I like all them 3 teams, Kongsvinger, Brynne, or Ålesund, to be good for the Eliteserien next year. Strom's Godset, dear me. We didn't see this coming, did we? at the start of the season. They're the big flop, aren't they, really? I mean, I think I had them mid-table. Just everything's gone wrong for them. Fadugba came in, looked like he'd maybe rescued and steadied the ship. We thought they'd go and make the playoff game, didn't we? But just sunk like a train last few weeks. And then Haugesund, I'm pretty sure it's already a record low. 12 points is the maximum they can get. I think Allsvenskan did have the previous record. I'm not sure what it is. Someone did tell us this once. It might be 10 points. It might be 14 points. Anyway, I actually think Haugesund might win the last game. They got Bryn. Now, if Bryn have got any sense, they'll rest players. Okay, if they can rest players. So if Haugesund are fighting for the to avoid the record, or at least get to double-digit points, 9 points, it's a disgrace, isn't it? Really, 24 defeats out of 29. This is one of the worst teams we've ever seen in the European League. It's big. 76 goals conceded. I mean, come on, at least get to double-digit points, boys. Please, if you're listening to this, get
24 goal loss on the weekend.
Just ridiculous. I mean,
minus 100 goals conceded.
I mean, they could easily concede 80 goals here, couldn't they? Which, that's a lot. Obviously, they've not scored. They've just been that awful. I did predict them to go down, didn't I? I'm sure I did. I did. I must have. I've got this one right. And I'm going to look back at my predicted league table now, actually, because I'm absolutely convinced that I have. Yeah, I did. I predicted them 15th place to go down. So that, as far as I'm concerned, is a victory on my behalf. I predicted Strømsgodset in 9th, Bryn in 16th, and Sandefjord in 14th. They're going to finish 5th. So I've got them completely wrong. Molde and Rosenborg as well. Actually, the more I look at this predicted league table, the more I want to forget about it. But I did get Haugesund right. And that's what matters, right?
Well, let's move on from your predicted league table. I don't know if Haugesund or you are worse, to be fair, but I think Haugesund probably snatched the crown just about with their pitiful efforts. Will we see them again, Steve? I don't even know. But let's Godset have got away with a little bit of stick here because I haven't really slated them too much this season, Steve. A miserable campaign for them.
Miserable, that's for sure. And the biggest problem is the defence, is because conceded too many goals. The second worst expected goals as well. They've missed a lot of chances, though, of Strømsgodset, especially in matches that mattered. They just lacked enough finishing touch. Simple as that, really. And that's cost them. I thought, it looked like Fadugba had sorted something out. They had a really good mid-season spell. I mean, look at the result. They won 4 out of 6 games between the 3rd of August and the 21st September. And then it just all went, their form evaporated. So what can you do? I mean, maybe they just used up, or maybe it was like the new manager bounce and it went. Pressure of being down there at the table. But ultimately, you can't start. Look at this run. Between round 5 and they lost 10 games in a row. 11 in a row they lost at one point. You can't do that, can you, and expect to stay up? So for them, it's a disappointment. They'll aim to bounce back. And there's a good record for teams going down, do come back within a couple of years. Haugesund, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I've said they've needed a reset for ages. I mean, the good thing for them, at least they know they're going to be going down for a long time, right? So they should be ready for Obos, in theory. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a solid enough campaign next year.
Yeah, and this leads us on to our next point because there is a bit of a recent trend, isn't there, Steve, of teams getting relegated and then absolutely destroying the league below and coming back, and that takes us to, we've got quite a juicy cup final coming up, haven't we, Steve? Involving one Obos.
Yes, we do have. Yes. Well, this is an interesting one. The official 2025 Norwegian Cup final will be played, and it is basically in a situation where let me just find the data here while I can, because I'm getting mixed up with different cups. It's going to be played on the 6th of December. And this is going to be held in Oslo between Lillestrøm and Sarpsborg. And a huge shout out to Lillestrøm here, they've won the Obos again by a canter, unbeaten domestically in all competitions. So they could complete the whole year unbeaten in domestic matches. The weird thing is, the next cup is already in the last 16 stage, Jonathan. Now, we could have got a situation where both finalists of the 2025 edition are already knocked out of the next one by the time they play the final, but they are both still in the next cup, which the next round is in March. They're switching, they're doing the Swedish thing, where the final's going to be in the spring. So whoever wins it will only be a champion for 4 or 5 months, which will be obviously a short. They've had to wait a long time for this, by the way. The semi-finals were something. They were in July, the 9th of July. They've known they've been in the final for that long. And Lillestrøm, I do believe, are going to be the odds-on favourites to win in 90 minutes. The Obos team. A lot of people ask, where would Lillestrøm have finished this season in Eliteserien? Good question, but I think certainly mid-table would have been a fair answer. And Sarpsborg, of course, are in 10th. So I think it would be a good battle. And I would give Lillestrøm the edge because I think they'll bring more fans and I think they're more used to a grass pitch. But there's pressure, isn't there, when you're one match away from completing an unbeaten domestic season?
Yeah, I mean, imagine the feeling in the dressing room when you've already been knocked out of a tournament that you were in a final of. That's a bit of a strange, curious conundrum there, isn't it? But you said to me before the game, I just want you to talk to me about these two respective seasons, because they're teams we don't often talk about. Obviously, Lillestrøm we have not spoken about because they've been promoted and they've had a really good campaign. So I'd like you to just touch on them, maybe highlight one or two players, and also touch on their opponents because they're not a team we massively talk about a huge amount. They're in a cup final, and it's a big opportunity for them.
Well, yeah, and Lillestrøm, I'll be honest, I've not seen much of them in Obos, but I fully expected them to win the league. The manager has done really, really good there. Hans Erik Odegaard, former Sandefjord boss, of course, and he's done really, really well there. And Sarpsborg have had a bit of a turbulent campaign. They themselves had a managerial change midway through it. Christian Mikkelsen, of course, who's I think was probably in charge for most of the rounds, by the way. But they've now got Martin Foysten, of course, is in charge for them now. And it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. Former boss of Osters, I do believe, over in Allsvenskan. So, look, it's a weird one that the manager's only been in charge officially for 6 games, and now he's got a cup final. So it's a bit of they could be a bit of a wild card here, Sarpsborg, because I think they're going to be bang up for it as well. It maybe has all the makings of going extra time, sort of thing. What a great chance, by the way, for both of these teams to win some silverware. Like, this is not going to be a chance that knocks on the door every single day of the week. So, again, like we said the last episode, take your chance. Do your job, take your chance. And you can celebrate in the streets of Oslo on the 6th of December.
Yeah, that's what cup finals are all about, really, isn't it? And I see that the Sarpsborg connection to Sweden is still there in some way with Foysten, as he's mentioned, in charge. He jumped sort of out of the frying pan, didn't he, Stephen, into the candy store, to be fair.
Yes.
Going from a relegated side to cup final. They've got the likes of former Malmo stars, their captain, Johan Berget. He's now 35 years old. Anyone who's listened to us about 100 episodes ago would have heard Meatman Soccer waving his fist in the air at Johan Berget, probably about 100 episodes ago. Complaining about that player. You weren't a massive fan of Berget at Malmo, were you, Steve? They've got Aymar Scher in their team, former Hammarby young talent, if I remember rightly. Yep, and he was also at Spezia and Groningen. Mahana Gies, who I wrote a Y Scout blog about, is at Salzburg these days. I didn't realise that. Talented left back. He's only 28, actually. I think he was a decent player in Sweden. So there's certainly a connection running through that club of sort of Swedish tinged people. So yeah, Salzburg. Let's see how they get on. Do you have a prediction for this one, Steve?
I think I've just got a good feeling Lillestrøm will win the cup. quite in what fashion, I'm not sure. This competition has gone to penalties quite a lot in recent years, I do believe. So maybe that's the smart answer. Lillestrøm win on penalties. It's usually a low-scoring game, this final, but possibly it might be more high-scoring due to the nature of the teams involved. The next next round of the cup in the spring, Fredrikstad against Sarpsborg in a local derby is an incredible matchup, and Lillestrøm's fixture is at HamKam. Molde are facing Bodø Glimt in the round of 16 as well. So all the big teams are left in it. But first, we've got this cup final, and good luck to both in that final.
And obviously, there's a European place at stake here as well.
Well, I don't know how it works, actually. Maybe one of the listeners can message us and tell us how, because by my reckoning, there's two teams that need to be in Europe now. The winner of this cup and then the winner of the cup the cup final that's going to be in May. So I'm not sure how they're going to work it out. Maybe the winner of that one in May will get the decision. I don't know. I'll be honest, I'm not prepared with this one. I've not done my research.
Well, in the words of Roy Keane, Steve, do your job.
Yeah, I haven't done my job there, have I? I don't know.
Can't be asking listeners to give you the answers for this one. So I'm going to exclusively reveal, if I can, whilst we're on air, that I think the winners of this cup, is it a playoff?
I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, look, the problem's solved if someone like Bodø Glimt or Viking or Tromsø, actually it can't be Tromsø, they're knocked out. Bodø Glimt or Viking or Brann.
They will enter the 2026-2027 Europa League playoff round. The 2025 really? Norwegian Cup winners.
Right. Yeah. Okay, there you go then.
That is according to Wiki.
That's interesting.
You're saying to me that the 2026, this is technically the 2026 Cup that you're talking about now, isn't it?
Well, whoever wins the 2026 Cup, which will be decided in May, I think, will they not get into Europe then? That is the question that I'm asking. Or will that place overtake fourth in the league?
Now you're asking things that are not on my pay grade.
Yeah.
But all I can tell you is that the winner of this one will play in the 2026-2027.
There you go then.
Europa League third round game. Playoff round, sorry. So
yeah, I don't think it's
massive opportunity for both.
Yeah, it's a huge chance. If you're in Europa League, Fredrikstad were in the same position this year, and they unluckily drew Crystal Palace in the playoff round for conference, didn't they? But they still got a great 2 ties out of it. And by winning this Norwegian Cup, I would say the odds are in your favour to qualify for the Conference League group stage eventually. So you're not just getting a cup win, you're getting a potential European adventure out of it, Jonathan. So it's huge for both teams. Sarpsborg, of course, were in Europe, weren't they, a few years ago? So yeah, it's loads at stake here, and be interested to see which way it goes. So yeah, that pretty much concludes it, doesn't it, for the Norwegian talk for the episode?
Well, no, we do have one more thing to say, actually, Steve. We've got to send our regards. Some quite sad news coming out of Norway this week, hasn't there?
Yes, it was sadly revealed by a manager. I mean, I don't actually know the exact number of clubs, but certainly ex-Malmo, ex-Rosenborg, Åge Hareide. Bad news on the health front there. Was diagnosed with brain cancer, and we wish him all the best from us here. A legend of the game in terms of managers in the Scandinavian region, and a very nice bloke as well from all reports that we've always had down the years. So that was the terribly sad news, Jonathan, that one. Someone who we've got used to down the years, really.
Yeah, extremely sad, and obviously we wish him all the best. His recovery, I think he's made some comments about it, and obviously I'm not going to translate them now, but an extremely sad and tough situation for him. So yeah, we obviously can't leave this episode without wishing him all the best. Someone we talked about a lot on this podcast, haven't we, Steve, over the roughly 200-ish episodes that we've had. I think you'll confirm that maybe on the next one.
These are the teams he's managing his time: Molde, Helsingborg, Brøndby, Rosenborg, Norway national team, Ålgrit, Viking, Helsingborg as a caretaker again, Malmo, Denmark national team for 4 years, Rosenborg again, Malmo, and Iceland. I mean, that's what a CV that is for clubs and nations in the Nordic region. So the word legend does get overused, doesn't it? But he is one, just 72 years old. Let's say we wish him all the best.
Yeah, and we do definitely wish him all the best. And Steve, I just want to say one more thing about the the Norwegian Cup. Sorry, I've been looking into this, and I don't actually think Salzburg have ever won a trophy in their history.
Are they not?
So, unless I'm mistaken, I can't see any record of them winning. Well, no, I'm wrong. But they've had different names of clubs. They've won the Norwegian Cup 6 times, so forget that. You can even take that out of the episode or leave it in, and I'll look stupid. But the point is, they've had different names, and that is why Wikipedia should never trust it. So don't listen to me, Steve.
Yeah.
It's not prominent on their website or in their wiki that they've won many honours. It's not easy to find. They have played in European football, though, Steve. So from that point of view, they have got experience, and they are quite a big club in Norway, in my opinion. I always think of Salzburg as one of those sort of teams that they're always on the radar, aren't they? I think.
And they'll be desperate to win it because their big rivals Fredrikstad won the cup last year, so they'll want to get one over them and say, we you won your cup, now we've won ours. So look, it's a feisty game. There's so much at stake for both. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, that will be the final match on the Norwegian calendar, I do believe. The playoff, although the playoff will be over 2 legs eventually. I'm not sure what the schedules will be. But anyway, before we finish, I want to type a few things in Sweden. Allsvenskan and Superettan talk here. And I mean, the first place to start is Norrköping against Örgryte, the first leg of the playoff game. And bear in mind that the Allsvenskan team usually has a great record in this. Örgryte 3, Norrköping 0 after the first leg, and Örgryte were down to 10 men for most of the second half. You said in the last episode about Norrköping, go out there and prove that you belong at Allsvenskan level. And to the manager in particular, prove that you deserve all these strong links to other clubs. Well, this is looking like they could go down. They have got to overturn a 3-0 deficit. And Örgryte, we could get a case where we have 4 teams from Gothenburg in the Allsvenskan in 2026. How about that?
Yeah, Steve, can I just correct, before we talk about that, just quickly for the listeners, can I just make a point of order here? Because Salzburg haven't actually won the Norwegian Cup since 1951, but Salzburg 08, which was an amalgamation of a merger in 2007 of Salzburg 08 and Salzburg FK, which is an amateur club. Salzburg FK, have won the Norwegian Cup 6 times. So it depends. It's a bit of a point of order. It's a bit like Steve, Rangers. Does this Rangers actually exist, or is it a different type of Rangers? Now, if any Rangers fan listens to this, I'm in big trouble. But you know what I mean. It's a merger, and then it's that kind of grey area. So depends how you look at it. Macclesfield in non-league, is it the real Macclesfield, or is it the wrong? Which Macclesfield is it? It's that kind of thing. So yeah, Salzburg 08. I don't think you can technically say they've won anything, but Salzburg FK, who are a merger, have won it 5 times, but not since 1951. Lillestrøm's last Norwegian Cup, Steve, was in 2017. So one of them is going to have some success. Now, when we talk about this, there's only one thing I can really say, Steve, and that is we are on the brink of something that has never happened before in this podcast, which was created in my former lodgings in Gothenburg, out of a text message conversation, Steve, 200 episodes ago, roughly, when I said to you, shall we start a podcast? Because you have all this Norwegian knowledge and I've got all the Swedish knowledge. As I was about to board a plane back to England to move back to England, and that is where this podcast began. And now, Steve, out of that Gothenburg lodge, we are potentially about to have 4 Gothenburg teams in Allsvenskan next season, because Örgryte have battered Norrköping 3-0 in the relegation playoff. Guys are already there. They joined the party a few seasons ago. Obviously, Beko Hacken have been there winning titles. EFK Göteborg had a great season, Steve. They've got that fitness coach in. He's done the job for them. He's increased their levels. They've performed very well this season, EFK. And we are on the brink, failing a minor miracle from Norrköping, Steve, of having Ågri back in Allsvenskan, a historic club, Steve. Anyone who's followed this podcast for more than 5 years may well remember my Oisin Source football manager live stream during COVID. That's how far back we've gone. And they could be about to enter Allsvenskan 2026. Now, Steve, Norrköping have just fallen into a trapdoor here, haven't they, really? And I want to talk a little bit about the manager because he is the example of the Ruben Amorim kind of manager where he has been linked. He was linked with the new Malby job, with the Mjällby job. And he was been linked with big clubs, Steve. The reports actually out of Sweden were that he turned down the opportunity to take the Mjällby job. Whether or not that's true, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, for the listeners who might not have heard, Anders Torstensson has announced that he will be stepping back into a technical director role as of 2026. So he is leaving the Mjällby job. Carl Marius Axum will be the new manager of Mjällby. But the interesting thing is, on that point, Steve, that this Martin Falk, who's got Norrköping nearly relegated, was a major contender. So what does that say about these sort of managers?
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'm getting distracted by something on TV. I'm watching the end of the Thanksgiving game in Dallas, and there's NFL players literally eating turkeys from their hands. This is an incredible sight. This is completely off topic, but they look incredible. But anyway,
Who
look,
looks incredible, the players or the turkeys?
just the turkeys and the whole experience of it. Brilliant stuff. Anyway, you want to search it up on X or whatever. At the end of the game, the Dallas Cowboys players were loving it. Would this be?
Well, the point I was about to make, Steve, before you rudely interrupted me, was that Norrköping and their manager are about to be turkeys themselves because it's looking like toast for them. And my point really was these sort of ideological managers who I know Martin Falk is highly rated, but I mean he's having a torrid time. Is it the manager's fault? Is it the squad's fault? It's back into that age-old dilemma, Steve. But he is certainly not having a good time of things, and they are one step away from being relegated, which would be unimaginable for Norrköping. Let's not forget, Steve, Norrköping are one of the most successful teams in Allsvenskan history. So this is no small thing going on here. Although they haven't necessarily been a huge club over the past sort of 5 years, they've had some financial troubles. But Steve, even you and me have spoken about them 4 or 5 years ago as a big team.
Yeah.
Who could forget the likes of Benro? And there was one season I predicted them to win Allsvenskan. I think it was our
They
first
nearly
season.
did win the league one year. It went to the final round. AIK won the league that year, and I mean, the question I'm going to. This would be, I think, the biggest relegation since in Allsvenskan since we've covered the league. AIK, I think, got relegated before we started the podcast in about 2012. That for me, that it would still be bigger, but this is huge. If they don't turn around this 3-0 deficit, then, and they still could, they're not down yet.
No, I think
then it would be huge. But also, it would equally as huge if Ågri came up, because this is a big club, right? What would Ågri bring to Allsvenskan? You know quite a lot about this club. I think they sound quite an exciting team.
Well, I'll tell you what they'll bring to Allsvenskan, Steve. They'll bring them 12 league titles for one. A massive club. They'll bring with them 2-time Allsvenskan winners. Obviously, you're going back nearly 100 years. In fact, Steve, this will be the 100-year anniversary of their first Allsvenskan title win. Now, of course, Allsvenskan is only 100. It's just over 100 years old. So their previous sort of 11 titles, Steve, were all during the different eras. Basically, is my point I'm making. So the title of Swedish champions. There's been different amalgamations of it. There's been different descriptions of it, if that makes sense. So, but anyway, long story short, they've won it 12 times. They are a massive club, Steve. In my opinion, they're not. I don't think they're the most biggest supported club in Gothenburg necessarily. That would be a debate for another day. Certainly, in terms of attendances, they don't get huge attendances, but they are massive rivals with Göteborg. The derbies have always been very well attended. In fact, the Allsvenskan all-time record back in the day in 1959 was an attendance of 52,194 between Örgryte and IFK Göteborg. So two huge enemies, two teams that don't like each other, and they'll bring a lot of flavour, Steve. One thing I'd say, and I don't know about recent seasons, but one thing I remember from my time out there, their academy is one of the best in Sweden, in my opinion. at the time it was anyway. They always produced good players from Gothenburg, Steve, and they've kind of been a club who really, I think, feel like they should be in Allsvenskan, to be honest. If you compare some of the teams like Varnamo or um, Varberg Boys, even, who are just down the road, they will look at themselves as much bigger than those sort of clubs. So I think they will get the job done. I know you stuck your neck out about Viking. I'm going to stick my neck out about Augury, and I'm going to say I think they will get the job done. I can't see Norrköping turning that around. I just think they're too weak, to be honest, in terms of mentality, too weak in terms of team. Maybe they could pull off like a 2-0 win or something like that, 2-1. But I can't see them turning it around from 3-0 down. So I think Augury will score, and I think they will beat in Allsvenskan next season. So it would also be a massive blow for the manager's reputation. But I don't want to sort of get on Martin Falk's back, Steve, but I do think this is a bit of a talking point in football at the moment. Like, what is a manager? Is a manager, I think we're splitting into the year of managers where what actually happens on the pitch doesn't really affect their reputation anymore in some ways. What is Ruben Amorim still doing in Manchester United? Or Russell Martin? He's that kind of manager, basically. He's about to take a massive club into Super Etten, and yet he's linked with some massive jobs. So you do the math, Steve. What's going on there? You tell me.
Well, look, this is a really unique case, I think, because unlike someone say Vincent Kompany, right, who took Burnley down and then got the Bayern job, the general label was that that he didn't have any tools to work with. But and it's been proven, I suppose. Now he's gone to work with the better players at Bayern and he's delivered. If Martin Falk was in charge of a really top quality bunch of a group of players, would he have the same sort of success? That's the big question. But I'm not seeing much from XG numbers, expected points. That legitimately they are where they deserve to be. So what? Maybe you're seeing something on the field, because I haven't seen anything from watching Norrköping this season that would suggest the manager would deserve a better job. And the way I would see it, go down there, look at Kalle Carlson at Västerås. He did have good numbers underlying last year. He was linked with good clubs. He stayed at Västerås. He took them back up. He's linked with other jobs now. I think this is what the manager's got to do here. If they go down, take your medicine, win that league.
I'll take your point, Steve. The key difference there is Västerås were a newly promoted side with no real hope of staying in Allsvenskan, and were very competitive with the underlying numbers. This is a big club that's just catapulted themselves down the league, or reverse catapulted themselves, I guess, or just slid down the table. So, on what means, and this goes back to my point about highly rated managers, or is it about reputation? What is it about results? What is it about these days? Now, this has nothing really to do with Martin Falk necessarily personally, but it's a big question, I think, because I think there's a lot of people in Sweden, Norrköping fans and fans of other clubs, sort of saying, well, what's he done to maybe get his name in the frame for these big jobs, apart from be very young? Is it a case of maybe just too much faith in a young manager? Maybe he's basically the Fabian Hertzler of Allsvenskan. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a massive achievement having a CV, is it? Taking down a massive club like Norrköping. So, there's a caveat there, Steve. I do have to be clear. The caveat is Norrköping have not been in a good place for 2-3 years now. They've had financial turmoil. Board of directors have left. They've had sporting directors leave. They've got a new sporting director now. There's been a lot of change at Norrköping. They did not make the most of the money they made from some big transfers over the years. Several Icelandic players that they sold for profit. Alec Benro. They never really utilised that money very well, and they have become a bit of a mishmash of a team. And even some of their better players, Steve, earlier in the season have left. So I think it is a difficult job, to be fair. But at the same time, if they were to get relegated, and it's not done yet, but if they had to get relegated, it would be catastrophic.
It would, and yeah, it would be a huge story. And let's see how the second legs go in that one. One final point of order before we go. Allsvenskan fantasy, Jonathan. We know the results of the final league table, and Ross Bullen, with his team called Miron Hu, held on at the top to win the NFP league by 13 points. He was up against Ivan Turinas, AIK. That's Robert Onunga, who actually had a wild card, and he used it on the final round did Robert. But Ross nailed his final round, 83 points, and got the job done. They brought in Paulos Abraham, which was a crucial move, who had a good final round for Hammarby. Third place, Martin Osmond Smith, Mendes Moment. And just sneaking out, John Hamilton Ward with a great name, Person of Interest, one of the best named teams in the league this season. So congratulations to Ross Bullen. What's his prize, Jonathan? Does he win a prize for winning the Allsvenskan Fantasy League? I feel like he deserves something. I don't know what we can get him, but I finished 24th, which I was quite happy about. Ahead of several distinguished names, it must be said.
My only satisfaction this season is I finished ahead of Sam Hart, who's a good friend of the pod, who usually is quite high up the league. So I'm not sure what happened to him. But as for the rest of it, it can all go to hell. I don't care anymore.
There's always next season.
I blame you, Leo Walter. I blame you. I blame Leo Walter. Why did you not leave Allsvenskan all season? Week after week, I expected Leo Walter to leave Allsvenskan, and I never transferred him in. But then again, Steve, I do have to also blame myself because I've only just learned that you could bank your transfers, a bit like the Premier League fantasy. You've only just told me that now, and I didn't realize for the entire season.
I shouldn't have told you, should I? You
didn't tell me because the season's over.
The same. I just presume you knew, to be honest.
No, I don't really read the rules and stuff, and it never was made clear. I don't think. I'm sure there's definitely weeks I didn't make a transfer and it didn't roll over. So I'm really
the game's done you in.
I'm a bit confused. Yeah, I'm gonna play the Virgil van Dijk card on that one and pretend it's all gone.
This is your lowest ranking Allsvenskan's fantasy since 2020.
Well, that's because we've got a lot more people in the league. I think
there is more in it. Yeah,
points wise, I don't know if that's true.
I'm gonna be careful what I say here now because I'll wind you up and you'll be so focused next year. But I know I've got to sing when I'm winning because this happened before and you got me with 2 great seasons. So yeah, we'll bounce back.
I blame Leo Walter. Simple as that. Why didn't you leave?
Once again, massive congratulations to Ross Bullen, who has been in touch with us before. He's tweeted at us before. He didn't think he would hold on halfway through the season, but he did. So huge congrats. 2,145 points he scored. And he finished. Where did he finish overall? 226 overall. He finished.
We'll have to tag him
in the whole game. So fair play there. That will conclude this episode, Jonathan. We hope to return. We want to do some teams of the season, and obviously conclude the final business in Eliteserien Allsvenskan. So yeah, that is it, Jonathan, for this episode.
Schedule permitting, we may have one more show in us. But if we don't. It's been a great year, and no, we will have another show because we've got to salute the champions.
We have to. We will find time.
So
don't you worry about that.
We shall see you again soon. We have put a canvas out to guests, and I just want to actually make a personal plea here. If you are Norwegian, if you're involved in football in Norway and you've listened to this far, get involved. Give us get in touch with us because for some reason, Steve, it appears quite hard to get hold of Norwegian people working in Norwegian football. I don't know why. But give us a shout because we want to have maybe more guests from the Norwegian side of things on. I've been trying to get hold of the KFM Oslo manager, for example, but found it quite difficult. So if anyone's got a theory as to why that is, are they a bit more shy? Maybe they don't want to promote themselves as much. We did have, obviously, Rosenborg's technical director at the beginning of the season. That was a fantastic interview. But other than that, Steve, we sort of struggled a little bit. So that is my personal plea. But otherwise, thanks for listening. Here's to around about 200 shows, Steve.
Yeah.
We'll have a special guest once we confirm it, or if we're already past it, then we'll figure it out. But if you haven't listened to the Anders Torstensen interview, then do, because that's a great episode as well on leadership and motivation. But for now, good to be with you as always, Steve, and I will see you again soon.
Take care, everyone. See you next time on NFP. Goodbye.